Hi, I'm Margaret, and welcome to Garden School. Today, I wanted to talk about a beautiful tree that we have here in the Pacific Northwest and pretty much along the Pacific coast from British Columbia down into northern and the central part of California. And it is the Pacific Madrona, Arbutus menzezii. I wanted to focus on this beautiful tree today, talk a little bit about the issues that it has, the part of that it has in our ecosystem, and just how beautiful it could be in the right place in a landscape. Now the Madrona has this beautiful cinnamon red bark, this thin papery bark. It has another coating of bark here, but this underbark that typically peels away and drops off sometime during the summer, revealing this beautiful yellowy green, smooth new bark layer. It's just so beautiful to see this. Now, I've seen many of these beautiful trees on a bank or a cliff along the coast, and sometimes they will lean out and you see this beautiful bark color. It's very lovely. Now, if you are north of the Siskiyous Mountains in southern Oregon, if you're north of that area, the tree is typically called a madrona. South of the Siskiyous Mountains, a madrone. And in British Columbia, Arbutus. Well, whatever name it has, it is a gorgeous tree, and it is pretty important in our ecosystem too. The Pacific Madrone is part of the Ericaceae family, and you can see it's growing right here with its kin, one of the huckleberries. But some of the problems here that we've discovered with the Pacific Madrona are its susceptibility to disease. If it's in too moist of a situation, it can suffer from root rot. There's a fungus that is lethal to these trees, but also there are some other things that we might see on a Madrona. This is some leaf blight that seems to be endemic on the Madrona. And it's just a thing that it has to live with. It's typically not going to kill the tree, but it can make it look kind of scruffy as it exists with this condition. Now in the spring, the Madrona will have creamy white little bunches of little flowers that are visited by pollinators and honeybees even. In fact, some people will, places you can find Madrona honey. But then those little flowers, they ripen, and those flowers are bell-shaped, and they might even be pinkish. Little clusters that would look like a huckleberry flower or a blueberry flower. Then those berries ripen to a beautiful orangey red berry, and those we would see sometime here in the fall and probably persisting into December, assuming they don't get eaten by all the birds. If you happen to be fortunate enough to find a Madrona that has just decided to grow on your property, if you need to relocate it, do it before the tree is more than a foot high. After that, it will probably not survive the transplanting. So that's just a heads up. So those berries are a wonderful food source for many animals, little rodents, squirrels, but also the birds. You may see a flock of cedar waxwings or the band-tailed pigeons just gorging themselves on the berries when they're ripe. The Pacific Madrona is called a broadleaf evergreen tree. It can grow up to 40 feet tall, perhaps taller. And if you choose to want to introduce this into your landscaping, you probably should do some research to find out what is the best situation for it. It will not tolerate too much moisture. In fact, that will perhaps introduce some fungal diseases that may cause it to not look so great, but perhaps even just to succumb. Well, also another thing is when you are going to find these in nature, you'll see them with lots of their family relatives, with the native rhododendron, the huckleberries, salal, all of those Ericaceae family members will be in the same situation where a madrona is. Well, I hope you learned a little bit about the Pacific Madrona, Arbutus menzezii, and that you perhaps can go out into your environment and be looking out for those red berries way at the top of the trees and for the birds enjoying them. It's a beautiful plant to have, even though it has some imperfections, and don't we all? Well, there's always more to learn in the garden. Bye-bye.